In this video, I'm gonna share with you 5 ways that I knew I had grown as a business owner. I was no longer being distracted by shiny objects or those cool opportunities that land in your inbox. And I could put all of that aside and focus on my one goal, which was scaling my online courses. This can be tough because at first we feel like a fish out of water in this entrepreneur world and we don't know what to focus on. Stick with me till the end. I know that I'm gonna save you time and heartache because I experienced that up until I learned some of these lessons and was able to understand what I should focus on, where I should put my time so I could scale my courses to the moon. Let's dig in. So the first one here is I started to focus on boulders rather than pebbles. So what do I mean by that? I mean, like, I started to focus on the foundation of my business, the big picture things that if you don't have the big boulders in place, pebbles don't make any bit of difference when it comes to a strong foundation. It would kind of be like somebody who started on a weight loss journey and they're worried about like little powders and supplements or the very best gym to go to rather than just showing up and being consistent every day. A couple quick stories here is that when I got one of my first partnerships where we were going to share leads and we really had the same ideal customer avatar. This company was doing tanks for nursing moms. I had courses where moms were learning how to breastfeed their baby. And we were like, okay, we're going to do this partnership. We're going to share leads and kind of created this win-win scenario. And right before we closed it, I sent her kind of this term sheet and said, oh, I want exclusivity and that, you're only going to work with me as the only lactation expert. And she was so gracious and so kind. She was further along in her entrepreneurial journey than I did. And she's like, okay, like that's fine. I mean, I don't really think that matters, but like, sure. So in that moment, she was nice enough to kind of walk me through like, hey, this is a win-win and there's a big old world out there. So sure, happy to grant that, but I just want to let you know, I don't think it's going to make a difference in the big scheme of things. She was absolutely right because wow, my revenue was under $5,000 a month at that time. What in the world was I worried about for exclusivity for? Now there is a place for that. Obviously you go into big box stores, exclusively at Target or maybe like a Nordstrom exclusive item with a celebrity. Cool, awesome. There's a time and a place for that, but see how I was focusing on a pebble instead of a boulder of just getting more leads in my door as I was trying to just increase my revenue from like a $5,000 a month to a $10,000 a month. I'm going to talk more about experimenting, how important that is when it comes to scaling and partnerships and all that kind of stuff. But first, I want to share this other example, which was a big aha moment. And it was right after I launched the first version of my online courses. I found myself in a conversation with somebody who was a YouTube ads expert and also had been doing digital products for like 10 years. And I talked to him about how I was trying to learn more about protecting my content. How I was gonna like put all these safeguards up so people couldn't share files and share my content without paying for it. And he listened to me and he kind of smiled and he said, okay, so what are you trying to do? You're trying to block somebody from sending it to their friend that lives in a different state. And I said, yeah, like what if somebody buys it in Utah and they send it to their friend in Indiana? And he said, and I was like, well, then they would be getting the content without paying for it. And he said, but isn't that like kind of good for you at this stage? Even if that happens, it's just more exposure for you. It's more moms at a park in Indiana talking about your company, talking about your product. And it was like this light bulb moment of like, okay, I'm gonna do the best I can to safeguard my digital product and I'm gonna put these disclosures up, but there are probably hackers out there that can hack into any digital product and share files. So am I gonna focus a ton of time on that when really right now I should be focusing on getting more revenue, getting more sales and serving more people? So it was this really cool eye-opening experience. I'm not saying that protecting content isn't important, but it's all about what stage you're at and especially where you are in the spectrum of building your brand awareness. Shout out to Jake for opening my eyes and understanding what was more important at that early stage. Okay, so number 2, let's jump ahead. I stopped looking for secrets and the exact right way to do something before I did it. So I don't know about you, but I'm like a very black and white personality. And if I'm gonna do something, I wanna do it right. So I wasted some time hesitating early on, wanting to make sure that I was doing it the right way. And a lot of times when it comes down to business and marketing, everything is just one big experiment. It's not like one playbook that, okay, if you follow these steps and apply it to any business and to any offer and to any audience, it's gonna work. So you have to get comfortable in the gray. Remember how I said I was black and white? So you have to get comfortable in that gray area. You gotta live there. You kind of gotta set up shop as a mad scientist and be okay with experimenting. Some things are gonna fall flat. Talk a little bit more about experiences with that in a second, but you have to be comfortable experimenting, and especially like within your team, whether you have like a couple part-time employees or whatever. On our team calls, we always talked about, it's not about who's right, like, hey, what's the best test? What are some tests we can set up? And then let's let the audience decide. Let's let the results of the marketing campaign decide and then go with that. Okay, number 3 is normalize something not working out. So I just talked to you about experimenting. Well, not every experiment works. So we've got the mad scientists in there, and a lot of times their concoctions explode in their face. And that happened to us many, many times. I think the key is to just get up and keep moving forward. And in a second, I want to talk about where to kind of focus most of your experiments. But before that, quick story was, I remember a time when we're trying to plan out our social media content calendar. So I had my part-time social media manager there, and we were, okay, what are a couple series that we can test? We know the ones that are hitting, we're going to keep those in place, but we want to kind of mix it up and test a couple different ones. So I had the genius idea of, hey, well, let's implement a Wellness Wednesday. Nobody's ever done that with social media before, and I'm sure it'll be a hit. So after 3 weeks of testing it, we had like two likes and 0 comments, and we X'd Wellness Wednesday for our platform. And then on our team, it became kind of this running joke, like if there was ever a pause in the meeting or we couldn't think of ideas, we'd say, well, we can always try Wellness Wednesday. Okay, number 4 is I stopped being tempted by those cool opportunities. What I mean by that is in the very beginning of my business, maybe the first 18 months, I ran around everywhere to every networking event, every podcast request that came in my inbox. I answered any opportunity to be affiliate for X, Y, and Z product. I jumped on all that stuff because I think in my mind, I thought, okay, if I just do all these things, like something's gonna stick. If I work harder, it's gonna get me there faster. I hadn't really mastered that concept of work smarter, not harder yet. And really when this came into focus for me was when I did a year-end review, revenue review of like, here's our products, here's our services, here's where the percentage of revenue is coming from. And this really came into focus for me when I did one of my very first year-end reviews where I put all the revenue out in different columns of here's our services, here's our digital products, and where does the percentage of revenue lie in each of those categories. And it became abundantly clear that our online courses was the #1 revenue generator for the business. So right then and there, I promised myself, okay, I'm gonna shut some of these columns down. I'm gonna minimize a couple of the other columns, even if I'm gonna keep them open, and I'm gonna focus all my energy and my specific attention on scaling my online courses to the moon. And that was a little bit of a hard shift for me because I was so used to kind of saying yes and diving in and doing all this busy work. I had to be disciplined to be passive in those other areas and focus on this one thing that I knew was gonna help the business, serve more people, and just be better overall for the company. Number 5 was when I realized and I understood there's really no finish line. When it comes to business and scaling, there's just different phases and like that next goal. So revenue-wise, if you're like, hey, I'm tinkering around 2 to 5 grand, maybe that next jump of progress and your next goal is how can I optimize to get to 10 grand, right? How can I optimize to get to 15 grand consistently? But if all you're thinking in business is,
oh, when am I gonna get to the finish line? Or when am I gonna get to the X, Y, and Z goal? And then I'm done.
Kind of like in the movie Social Network where Mark Zuckerberg's character says, it's the idea of fashion.
And I'm saying that it's never finished.
It applies to all different types of businesses. There's really no finish line. There's just different phases than the next goal that we're reaching for. And remember, that next goal might not be an increase in revenue. It might be, hey, I want to spend less time inside my business. I want to feel less stress. I want to be able to maintain a certain level of cash flow. I'm not really reaching for the stars right now. So the more that you can think like there really is no finish line here, just a matter of what I want to focus on, I think the more joy you're going to have in the journey, which if you can't love the process, you're probably not going to be that happy when you get to the outcome. Hope you guys loved this video. Let me know in the comments, are you focusing on boulders or pebbles? Are you a freshie or are you more of a junior or senior when it comes to business? Let me know in the comments. See you guys in the next video. Bye.